services on Wednesday evening are live streaming throughout the week, so make sure you're following everything and checking your emails. Thank you all.
Thank you all. As I said, I actually graduated with your priest, Father Chris Salami. We're both from Los Angeles, so we would see each other at break, and in the summertime, he had a really good basketball court in his backyard. He used to say he was a good basketball player. However, it was a home court, and the Antiochians and the Greeks would get together, and we'd play basketball, and we would go out to dinner. We were at school together for 4 years. It was really wonderful being with him, and I'm sorry I'm going to miss him, but next time he comes to Orange County, I hope to see him. I'm here because we have the Greek Orthodox Folk Dance Festival. There's about 4,000 people staying at the Sheraton in downtown Phoenix. There's 2,000 children. It's the largest Orthodox youth event in America. It's 4 days long. My wife Mia and my 4 kids aren't here. They're at the Divine Liturgy there. The kids that participate are required to go to the Divine Liturgy there. It's Archbishop of America, Apollofodos, our Metropolitan Gerasimos, and our Chancellor Bishop Ioannis, and about 30 priests from the parishes of the San Francisco metropolis, our diocese. The kids have a full weekend. They compete competitively in folk dance with judges and costumes. They have some kind of event for the children every night. They have workshops. They all must attend in a workshop that's led by priests and seminarians. They have some Vesper services. They have a hierarchical divine liturgy this morning. And then tonight they have a grand banquet where all the children dress up in suits and dresses, and the parents, and we eat, and they announce the rewards, and it becomes a dance afterwards. It's a really beautiful event because the bishops and the priests and the parents and the friends and the kids and the cousins are all there. And I always say, if we didn't have this, we'd be renting campers and going to the river, and we wouldn't be seeing each other this weekend. And so it's a wonderful event. The church I'm from is, we just bought a church building we were renting. I originally am from St. Sophia Cathedral in Los Angeles. I was the voitho, the associate priest there, under Father Bacchus for 6 years. And then I went to a mission parish in San Juan Capistrano. We had about 35 families we were renting. But thank God, that was 10 years ago. We just bought our own building for the first time. The parish started in 2003, so it's a 20-year-old church. It's directly across the street from the famous mission in San Juan Capistrano, which is the oldest and largest mission. When you go to school in California, in 4th grade, you got to learn about the missions, and you visit one. And so that actually has 1 million people a year visit the mission, and the Catholic Church has built a new basilica right behind it. And so that's just a little bit about me. We have another person from our church visiting today also. Konstantinakis' family is here. They wanted to come and visit. Joseph and Sophia Konstantinakis. She's actually my head chanter. She's in the back there with their 2 sons, Michalis and Ioannis. I'm glad to have them there and glad to see you all here. I wanted to say a few words about today before I know we're doing it out of order. When they said we give the sermon now, we were already chanting, so that's the way it is. But our service is a little bit differently, mostly the same. I lost my place a few times in the book because that was the hardest part, actually, because I use a completely different book that is laid out differently. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Today is about fasting. It's one of the themes of today, being Meat Fair Sunday, the day that we go and eat a lot of ribs and burgers before sundown to get it in right before. We're not going to eat meat for about 50-something days. And, I remember when I first went to St. Sophia, people would come for communion, and we, as Orthodox Christians, we're used to fasting. We fast a true fast before we take Holy Communion, because fasting is not eating at all. And then we have a Lenten fast, which allows certain foods. Somebody asked me when I first came there, maybe it was bothering her, she would see people coming all the time every week for Holy Communion. And in the Greek church, a lot of, like my parents, they did not receive communion every week, even though St. John Chrysostom invites us to do so, because my grandfather fought against the Ottoman Turks, because Greece was not free until 1920. It took from 1820 to 1920 to get all of Greece, which you know today. And so the church was heavily suppressed, and a lot of times it wasn't allowed. And people, the Ottomans also made note of those who went to church to see if they can persecute them some more or make their life more difficult by not allowing them to partake in certain civil offerings that other citizens were allowed to receive. And so you might not be able to receive Holy Communion. There might be no church. The priests were suppressed. They were taken out of the community. And so sometimes communion was twice a year or 3 times a year. And so when you knew you were going to have communion, you may have fasted. You may have fasted for weeks because there was going to be this opportunity. So the Greek word for grandmother in Greece is yaya. We call that yayaology because in America, my dad grew up that way, not knowing that St. John Chrysostom had said, don't even miss 3 times Holy Communion on Sundays, or you are taking yourself out of the community of the church. And so people asked me when I first became a priest, a lady from Greece asked me, she said, are you trying to tell me that these people are fasting every week and taking communion? She said, no, I don't believe it. I said, I don't know. I've been a priest for a week, so I can't really comment on. I'm just trying to get my bearings. St. Sophia Cathedral is 1,500 families and 2 priests in the middle of downtown Los Angeles. But I understood what she was saying because how she was taught was to have this great reverence for our faith and the sacraments in our faith and the participation of our faith. And the fasting is a part of it because we have been called to fast. Remember that when the apostles were unable to cast out an illness from someone who was sick, they came to Christ and they said, why couldn't we do it? And he said, well, this can only be done by prayer and fasting. So the apostles were called to be praying and fasting. So today is about fasting, but it's actually about being an apostle. It's not about the rule. It's not about if you came from Greece or maybe the Middle East and you come from the oppressed church and things were done differently for years, because now we live in a country right now where we have the freedom to participate in our faith in the way that we desire. And so we are able to come to church every week, and we're able to participate in this fast. But as I said, it's not about fasting. It's actually, today's reading is about being an apostle. That word comes from 2 Greek words. Apo means from, and stelno means to send. And so when you put them together, it comes to the word apostle. It means sent from. You are sent from God. In the Gospels, the disciples were called in New Testament Greek mathites. That means students or followers of Christ. But after the Gospels, when the church started on Pentecost, they weren't called disciples anymore. They were called apostles. Just like we need to consider ourselves apostles. We come and we learn about Christ. We learn our faith. We participate in our faith. And then we are called to serve others. To be sent from God to do what? To serve others. To bring others in the church. And this is important. St. Paul, he asked a question in today's epistle. Well, not a question. He made a statement. He said, I'm your apostle. I might not be their apostle. He's talking about people who don't have faith. Nobody outside of Christianity is concerned with what we're doing or concerned about being apostle. But we are. And we know something in our heart that if they were to come into this community and experience Christ and experience community and love and to hear the teachings of God and to hear what is right and what is true, that they would be enlightened and that they would be wanting to come here all the time and being under the church, that God has created and under God. So we're apostles in that way. St. Paul said, I'm an apostle. I'm your apostle. And then he called us to do the same. The fasting is an exercise in prayer. We're not really supposed to look at others and say, hey, that guy isn't fasting correctly. It doesn't negate Holy Communion. It doesn't erase the prayers of Holy and Great Lent. It doesn't change the faith. It's a way to participate in your faith to draw us closer to God, to be that apostle in the church and out. And right now it's hard. I have 4 children. My youngest child is 9. I have a 12-year-old, a 15-year-old, and a 16-year-old. They're all boys. And we have a boy dog. So there's only one woman in our house, my wife, Mia. And I see what's going on in the world. Marriage is considered unnecessary by a lot of the world that our kids are involved with. They're trying to teach us it's unnecessary. Family is being attacked. What we know as family in the Christian church, the mother and the father and the children, or the cousins and the aunts and the uncles, it doesn't have to be you're married to another, that family and the family of us as fellow Christians is being attacked. Our kids are being told, you don't need that. That family is wrong. And we have concern about that. St. Paul said, and I have it here, I know we're not supposed to use our phones in church, but I put my sermon on my phone here. In Ephesians chapter 1, he said, we are all sons and daughters by adoption to Jesus Christ. So there's no Greek and there's no Jew, as you heard in the New Testament. Why did St. Paul say there's no Greek and no Jew, but only Jesus Christ and faith in him, and that we're all adopted as sons and daughters of Jesus Christ? Because the Jews were considered the chosen people of God, that they were somehow special and separate from everybody else. And the Greeks were considered those who had knowledge, just, how it is. All the things, the architecture, the mathematics, the astronomy, all those things came out of the ancient Greek culture. And so it was like the chosen people of God and those who had knowledge, and people are seeking knowledge, and St. Paul says, no. There is none of that. Those are from a different place and a different time. Now, we are all children of God by adoption. Jesus has adopted all of us and called us all to his holy church. Kids are being raised with this in their face. That's difficult too. It's hard to change that because when your kids get to high school, their homework is on the cell phone. I didn't give my kids a cell phone for a very long time. Probably one of the last people, they were like 13, 14, they still didn't have a cell phone. They would come home from junior high and say, Dad, how come we don't have a cell phone? And I would try to explain to them why, and they just didn't understand because they were young. And so finally I just said, well, because we're Greek. You can cover a lot like that as a parent. But the problem is these phones have made us the product, okay? It's not like there's one sinister guy, behind the curtain like the Wizard of Oz, pressing the buttons. They've written mathematical algorithms that know when you're not looking at your phone. And they're selling advertisement, but nobody wants to buy advertisement on something that no one looks at. So the more you don't look at your phone, they tracked everything you've looked at and everything you've seen to send you more and more of that so they can have more and more of your attention. And we as adults, we say we can handle it. I don't know. Maybe we can. I went out the other day with my wife, and there was 2 people on a date. They looked like they were 20s. You can tell they weren't married. They were on a date. But they weren't talking to each other. They were looking at their phone, and I kept saying to them, do you think they're texting each other or other people? It used to be you went on a date, you came home, saw your friends the next day, and you told them what happened. Now you tell them why it's happening. How's the date? I don't know. It's okay. He's kind of lame. I hope it gets better by the next half hour. So you see, these things are taking our mind and our heart, and they're being pushed on us, and they're being pushed on our children, and parents are worried. And then comes Lent. Lent, the time we are told to spend more time in the church praying, to spend time fasting so we can receive more, so that exercise can bring us to read more and pray more. We are asked to reach out to more people. That's why the gospel today is not really about fasting. It's really about, you can do all the rules, but if you don't see that person in the street or just the friend who's hurting and you don't reach out to them, you don't just lend your ear to someone, you don't check in on someone because we're a family, you don't reach out to people in need, then the fasting is all for naught. It's just a bunch of rules. You know, the priest goes to the hospital. The people are on a serious, diet. They have to eat. He gives them Holy Communion. Maybe it's nighttime. They've had breakfast and lunch. It doesn't negate the Holy Communion. How fasting changes everything is it changes us. It makes us prepare for what we're about to receive. It makes us think about our faith and what we have. I'm not too worried about what's going on in the world because Father Paul Tarazi, he was one of my professors at seminary, and he used to always go to Ecclesiastes, and he used to think it was funny. He used to say, "Don't tell me about the world. It says here, nothing ever changes under the sun." And it's true. We have new ways. The world has new ways of trying to get our attention, trying to teach their false gods on us, trying to get us to consume what they want us to consume. But the church is strong, and the church is the community of the people, and the church is the faithful people. I tell my parish council, everybody you meet wants to be an Orthodox Christian. Most of them just don't know it yet. That's how we should think. Because if you grew up here, like me, you don't sometimes realize how awesome it really is. But then somebody new comes, and they tell you their background. They tell you what went on in their life. They tell you how this is changing their life. And they're completely blown away. And their whole life is changing. And so let Great Lent not be about the rules. Let the fasting be the exercise. And remember that this whole thing is for us to draw closer to God and to be his apostles and to be his faithful and to be the family in the world that the world rejects, and not just to look at the differences and say, oh, all these 20-year-olds are woke. Don't worry about that. They all want to be Orthodox Christians too. They just don't know it. Just open the doors and our hearts to them. Be faithful, be strong, know your faith, and bring them here. And then the world will change. We won't have maybe so many of these worries. May the Holy Trinity be with you and protect you always, now and forever, to the ages of ages. Amen. Thank you all for having me here today. I know we went out a little out of order. Do I give out the deal?
Thank you again, Father Bill. 2 final announcements. Visitors, welcome. Make sure you join us next door for coffee hour. And also, we will have liturgy on Friday morning at 9 a.m. for the first and second findings of the head of John the Baptist. His head got lost like 4 different times. They kept finding it. We have liturgies all the time.